Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's live stream. It's Friday. Yes, it is. Options expiry for the good old Bitcoin. And quite frankly, Bitcoin's doing relatively well, given that it's stuck at the 106 zone. And there's a lot of skeptics coming out about Bitcoin's price action. Most of them are saying, yeah, we're poised for a big move to the upside. Some of them are saying, nah, we're going to break down. We've hit a wall of resistance. That's it now. Bitcoin is done. Let's start witnessing the sub 80s and the 90s, whatever. I mean, how many of you on the idea that Bitcoin's going to lose 100K? Have you seen what's going on in the news about Bitcoin? But this is not, it's nothing new. There's always a good thing being said about Bitcoin. You've got a very, very crypto-friendly administration in the US, and things are just happening right now for Bitcoin. So when it's not moving up the way you would like it to, whenever you hear good news, that's because they're still buying it. Now, you hear a lot of people saying, oh, Bitcoin at these prices right now is, it's at a discount, and, your faces will be melting when it goes up and beyond 150,000 when you should have bought at 100K or 106, whatever it is. You can't blame people for being reluctant, given that Bitcoin has barely moved. And we have had quite a plethora of news surrounding the actual world's economy. Now, the biggest thing right now, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that the Fed is giving the market the idea that we are going to get rate cuts. But this morning, we got a little bit of data just to remind us of that good old friend that we have, Mr. Inflation. Core price index came in higher today. Now, that kind of makes sense because if you've got tariffs coming into action and the Fed is expecting tariff inflationary pressures, and then, of course, yesterday, core durable goods orders came in showing a phenomenal 16% when the projection was 8%. That's, of course, because people are anticipating that the cost of goods are going to go up. And today's reading came in suggesting that that could be the case because the core price index came in higher. Now, the market, as you can see, has been climbing quite a bit. And what we're going to do is going to break down the logic of where we are with volume, what's breaking out, what isn't breaking out, and what we can expect going into today. Because today, this is the final day for the legacy market. So if you are a trader of Euro, Forex, or you trade commodities like oil and gas, and you trade the indices, today's their final day of trading, which means that they're going to be closed in tonight's close. And then that's it. No more trading for the weekend. However, cryptocurrency will still be around. Now, crypto does tend to just go sideways. However, as we go into the formation of the psychological ranges, which takes the first high and the first low that forms at the start of a trading week, that's going to give us an insight into what we can expect for the rest of the week going into next week. So we're going to be diving into that just to get you guys aligned for it, because, of course, I'm not going to be communicating with you over the weekend because we don't do videos on the weekend. But if Bitcoin decides to do something crazy, then most definitely I'm going to be jumping on impromptu to try and give you guys a breakdown and make sense of the madness. So if you are new, welcome. My name is Tino. Let's break it all down and understand what madness is unfolding. Here we go. So trade talks and Fed rate cuts. That's the optimism that we're getting across the board. Going over into it, you can see that the NASDAQ has been doing very, very well as of late. It's been trading at significant highs, and this little pullback, ladies and gentlemen, if this is the climatic move and the market's priced in the idea of a potential rate cut, then that would imply the Fed pivot. Now, people have asked me the question, Tino, what do you mean about the Fed pivot? Well, whenever there is a change in the policies from the Federal Reserve, whether it's to increase interest rates or cut interest rates, that is what you call a Fed pivot. Now, depending on the direction of the pivot itself, if it's to increase interest rates, then that, of course, means that there's something that the Fed needs to do to slow down the expansion of the economy, which could effectively lead to inflation. But what we're looking at now is we've had the Fed increase its interest rates for quite some time. Now we're looking for them to cut the interest rates. And that's why Trump is so eager to get the rates cut, because he thinks that inflation is down. He thinks that oil energy prices are down, but the OPEC is going to now come and have a meeting saying that they are going to hike the amount of barrels of oil that are going to be released. So looks like oil is going to start making a bit of a movement yet again. And then when you see the stock market making such significant highs, you then say to yourself, is now a time to buy? I mean, come on. How many of you are actually buying? How many of you are buying at these ranges? Let's break it down firstly. Yesterday. This tells you if you have got a valid bull run. stock action. As it stands, we have got 2 distribution days on the NASDAQ, 5 on the S&P. These are days of selling, okay? But they were previously 4 distribution days on the NASDAQ, 7 on the S&P. So you can see that the numbers have changed. That means that volume has been coming in more than what the previous distribution day was, okay? So there's that reason for a potential logic to say that the market is rallying to the upside and it's going to continue. Remember, when you look at the chart itself, you say to yourself, is it going to continue? That's what you're asking yourself. Because when you wake up in the morning and you see, oh my God, look at this. I mean, if you look at Palantir stock, you know, that's wiped off like nearly $7 billion worth of short sellers. And they had an announcement and that just shot their price up to 300%. You can appreciate everyone has an expectation that the market is going to drop. That expectation is fueling the move higher. It fuels it. People just keep on loading shorts. It's gonna go down. It's gonna go down, and the market can be as irrational as it wants, but your pocket can't be. So this is where you've got to pull information together to try and come to the idea, that the market itself could be giving you signs of things turning. Okay. Now let me just go back into it. Stock action. 529 stocks were up on volume. Down was 57. 3 are breaking out. That's Thursday's action. I did it yesterday for Wednesday's action, and it only showed 2. Only showed 3 again. You've got the same amount of stocks that are breaking out. This figure right here, that needs to at least represent what's going on with stocks up on volume. Now that shows you here 22 stocks at a pivot. That tells you that they're approaching maybe a cup with handle, maybe a wedge, whatever it is you want to call it. So just to summarize it, if you've got stocks approaching a pivot, that means you've got a cup with handle, okay? And the stocks that are approaching a pivot, this is your pivot. They're approaching it. So this tells you that you've only got 22 out of this 529 stocks up on volume. 3 are breaking out and 22 are near a pivot. That's a warning sign. If we had stocks breaking out to the sum of around 35, 40, even 100 stocks breaking out, that would solidify the idea that the stock market has the fuel for the bull run. That's not me saying to you, yeah, man, I'm negative. I'm trying to give you the understanding of what to look out for to justify why now would be a time to buy stock or why now may not be a time to buy stock. Let's take it to smart money, dumb money. Smart money, if you look closely here, if I just zoom in, it's showing us that smart money has been offloading stock. That means they are selling as prices are going up, okay? Now let's just go into the volume of the NASDAQ. We look at yesterday's price action. The volume is still below average. To validate the idea of a follow-through or continuation, you're looking for volume to come in above average. Now, we have had 4 successive days of positive volume. To solidify the idea that the market is in an upwards move to the upside, we need today to be the day that the market follows through. Now, that's the works of William J. O'Neill, God rest his soul. You have 3 days of positive price action. The 4th day has to come in with volume above average, which would then suggest the idea of a follow through, which means that when we then update this information here, we'll have more stocks breaking out, we'll have more stocks up on volume, less stocks down on volume, and then you'll have plenty more stocks approaching a pivot because all of that accumulation that's been happening is now coming to an end, and we're now waiting for the release of liquidity to the upside, as in investors will be selling from all those positions that they've been building inside patterns like this, okay? That's how you work it out. We just go into the NASDAQ. You can see here, you got this move down and then it breaks out, right? So let's just go over and have a look at, let's go and have a look at another stock. Let's look at Plug Power because we spoke about this yesterday, okay? Now, you can see here, it's been coming down and then it's come up to retrace. This area here at 153 would be the pivot to break out. So if they're near a pivot, that's one of those stocks in principle. Now, let's just go and have a look at the actual stocks that are actually approaching a pivot, okay? Because if we've got heavyweight stocks approaching a pivot, that's going to justify if the market's going to go into all assets. That means cryptocurrency. So let's just have a look here. We have got cup without handle, Bank of America. So let's just put it into perspective. What's Bank of America getting ready to do? Look, There is your pivot. It's getting ready to break. That pivot of 47.98, it's about to break that zone, okay? So if you've got heavyweights that are approaching key pivot points where volume, I mean, look at the volume, average daily volume is huge. You want to see a lot of stocks with heavy volume and more average daily volume, so anything above at least 1 million shares per day. If you see big stocks making moves, then that solidifies the idea of the bull market, which leads me over to cryptocurrency. Speculation, saying that there's a massive crash or it's the next big rally. What's going to happen? Okay. Now, when we go into the article, it does talk about that there is a lot of macroeconomics coming into play that is leading Bitcoin higher. Investors do see Bitcoin as a risk-on asset. So if you've got tensions in the Middle East calming down, well, not according to this morning, but if you've got Middle East tensions calming down, that's going to make investors feel a little bit more comfortable. With that being said, we can justify that with the logic of interest rates going up or down. Look at gold. Gold is taking a bit of a nosedive to the downside. Why? Because could this be one of two things? All right? And comment if you think it's going to be the case. Gold goes up on one expectation. This is the first one. Interest rates being cut. Okay? Gold goes up on the second expectation. Safe havens. Are they scared of war? What's going on? Okay? And then you could have obviously have the third expectation, which is the value of the dollars just going down, and investors don't want to be locked inside of dollars, so they want to put those dollars into a much better yielding asset, even though gold is a zero yielding asset, which I always will remind you of. What do you think is at play right now? We're getting interest rate cuts. Doesn't that mean gold should be going up? Is the war still happening? Well, there's this talk that a ceasefire has been going off, and the Trump administration is trying its hardest to try and sell the idea that they did bomb Iran and they got rid of everything. Yet now Israel are demanding that Iran release and give up their uranium deposits. I mean, did you do it, Trump? Yes or no? You have to keep on pushing the narrative that you did. I mean, if you look at Levette yesterday, she just kept on talking about it. And I was expecting a little bit more from that. But all it was just, yeah, man, we did the greatest thing. We did the best strikes. We cleared it all out. Happy days. It's like the administration is trying to just keep us calm at bay because they're trying to stabilize the markets. But gold's price is painting a different picture right now. It could be that investors are coming out of gold and thinking it's now time to go into risk-on assets. Problem is the volume isn't backing it up, ladies and gentlemen. We need that one day. You've got Nvidia right now making some big moves to the upside. Let's just quickly have a look at Nvidia. You can see Nvidia, it's broken out of its high. Happy days. Volume has come in on the breakout to the upside. Volume was below average. Again, that's a bit of a problem for me. Going into the weekly, volume is depleting as it's making a move out to the upside. And this is where you do experience false breakouts. If the breakout doesn't happen with strong volume, you're going to be trapped in what looks like a nice breakout to the upside for then price to just instantly come back down again. Breaking the logic down for Bitcoin right now. Keep an eye out on gold, guys. That's all I'm saying to you, because investors, they're either coming out or being misled that the markets are going to continuously rally, and they're putting risk on, which doesn't make sense given that the euro is pumping up, ladies and gentlemen, and you've got the dollar dominance itself just still bleeding. So they're having to use more dollars, okay, to purchase stock because your dollar purchasing power is dead. And fundamentally, Bitcoin's price should be climbing up. Bitcoin's price should be going beyond the all-time high. But do you think Bitcoin could be a leading indicator? Because of its market cap being so small relative to the bigger marketplace, if investors aren't really going into Bitcoin, does it mean that they're actually pricing in the idea of what the future's looking like, so they're not really going as high as we would anticipate them to? Maybe that could be the case. Maybe Bitcoin is a little bit expensive. But the Arkham itself is painting a different picture, man. This thing is just going up and up and up. There's optimism across the board. Coinbase is going to be buying Bitcoin on a weekly basis. Happy days. That is great news. Okay, that's what we want to see. We want to see continuous accumulation. Quickly going over into other things like the crypto quant coming into the stable coin ratio. That looks like it's pretty much the same. It's still going down, suggesting buying power is coming into play. So that's good news. And then going over and to have a look at the position miners index. Let's just refresh this up just to see where we are with the miners. Not that it's really that important, because now it's going to be going from miners to actually BlackRock. Isn't that ironic? You know, you're going to be more interested in what Bitcoin ETF purchases are as opposed to the miners. Now you can see the miners themselves. If we just go into it, yeah, we haven't seen that much selling. I mean, it's doing all right. We can't complain. It's just mediocre bits of selling, nothing to be too concerned about. So that could lead us to believe that miners have an expectation that Bitcoin's price is going to go higher. So that's the next logic that we could go with. Quickly going on to Bitcoin price action on the higher time frames, you can see Bitcoin is trapped up here, man. And the fact that it's making successive higher lows, lower highs, it's making you think, okay, what's the next story? Okay, is Bitcoin primed to come down? And listen, Bitcoin can come down. Don't think that it can't, but you want to welcome that because you get information about who's buying it. You get so much information when you know that Bitcoin's price goes down, you can get an idea of who's buying it. What do I mean? Look, in front of you, what's this? $25 million purchased at 107,000. That is wonderful. Listen, if someone said, look, let me put it like this. You hear about BlackRock picking up the ETF. BlackRock has bought $150 million worth of Bitcoin. You get all excited and think, yeah. But then you look to the chart and Bitcoin's going down and you're like, scratching your head like, what the hell? That's information you can use. You can use that information to say, okay, if BlackRock are buying, but price is going down, it means they want a cheaper price. So I'm going to sit tight and wait. I'm going to sit tight and wait for the logic of maybe when Bitcoin starts to come up, if the offers start to come in and they've been buying quite a bit, then I can assume they're going to start working their way higher. This is for your DCA guys. You buy when you're in a move upwards, okay? And then when it's pulling back, that's the dip you buy with the idea that it's going to continue up. Don't DCA when Bitcoin's going down because our pockets are not big enough for that. If you can buy Bitcoin from 69,000 and ride it all the way down, keep on buying. I'm talking buying. I'm talking like for every time you see Bitcoin dip, you're buying like 5-6 Bitcoin. If you're in a position to be buying 5-6 Bitcoin at a time on the dip, that means you can absorb the move as low as it can go, because if you're using or buying that much Bitcoin, it means you're playing with much deeper pockets. But the illusion that has been sold, and I said this yesterday, the idea of DCAs being sold wrongly to people in crypto because their pockets are not as deep as the players that are maneuvering price. DCA when prices are on the idea of rising. You've got to factor that in. You DCA on these movements. These ones right here. They're your DCA moments. So then if you are seeing price going up, happy days, and we're in a good upwards move, awesome. You'd have to factor in that we've come from a downwards move and say, okay, there's a good chance that it's going to start working up, so I'll start DCAing on the dips. You don't want to be DCAing when it's doing this. And that's a problem with the cryptocurrency space, because the last time they were doing that, 69,000 all the way down to 15,000, they all got capitulated. And then that's when they started to lose their shit in the sense that Bitcoin ended up coming up. But all the players that were picking it all up were these guys that were buying on the bid side. Look at where these guys are bidding. They're bidding here, okay? 25 million bidded at that point. Now, they could have sold it because we can see that we've got some offers coming into play up here. But the fact is they're bidding from these points. So they can easily accept that Bitcoin can come all the way down and they can bid even more. And then Bitcoin can easily shoot all the way back up and clear out all these offers up here. 20 million to be sold at the 115 zone. What I'm trying to say, guys, is even if you were buying Bitcoin from 69,000 and you kept on buying it and buying it and buying it, as long as you were able to manage your expectation of it and it wasn't causing you stress at your depleting value in Bitcoin, next time round, because we're going to see Bitcoin make an all-time high, it's going to come back down to a significant low and it's going to simply climb back up again, because Bitcoin in principle is the asset that gives you that flexibility to do that. Because it's deemed as a risk-on asset, it does give people the opportunity to exploit it in terms of taking advantage of high price volatility. That's why, in my opinion, Bitcoin is not yet a safe haven, because if it was a safe haven, you would most definitely not get any of these wild movements. You wouldn't, ladies and gentlemen. XRP, I'm not going to even bring it up, but XRP is more of a safe haven in comparison to Bitcoin, okay? Because it does nothing. It goes nowhere. But Bitcoin moves. And Bitcoin is then treated like a meme coin. They want to see those parabolic moves, but the more expensive Bitcoin gets, the smaller its moves will end up. Let's just go and have a look at a stock to portray that example. Berkshire and Hathaway stock, okay? Let's just have a look at that. This stock currently right now sits at $729,807. Look at its movement. It's very, very small. It only trades roughly around 10,000 shares a day. Average daily volume, 300 shares a day, man. 300 shares. I bet you that the players that are playing this are probably sat at a coffee table. Should we buy it? Yeah, let's sell it. Yeah, we buy it. Yeah, let's sell it. Okay. One of the chief guys who was actually, I think he's actually retired. He was a part in the sector of insurance for Berkshire Hathaway. The chief of that, he sold 200 shares. 200 shares for about 135 million. That's where your Bitcoin's going, ladies and gentlemen. That's where I think it's going to go. And the days where you'll be looking at a 50, a 10 or 5 or even a 3% move in Bitcoin, you're all going to be celebrating Bitcoin making a move of 0.3%. Trust me, you will. Because as it gets expensive and expensive, okay, the volume ends up starting to get smaller and smaller because there'll be a lot of people that are retaining the Bitcoin. And with this balance right here, as long as that keeps on going up, they're sucking up your supply. This is the money heist that I've been saying to you all. That's where your Bitcoin's going. So Saylor has a point. Go and get as much of it as you can so you can be part of the gang that are holding quite a bit of it. Because this is the truth. Look at how much that has gone up. Went from 650 to all the way up to 690 nearly. They are sweeping up all that Bitcoin. And this is institutional players as well. But it doesn't stop you from getting involved in the Bitcoin ETF. Look at it, $61. If you want to get exposure, and not your keys, not your coin, I get all of that. But that's where they're going. They're picking it all up, ladies and gentlemen. BlackRock is one of the single largest corporate positions, okay, that actually has that amount of Bitcoin. It's taking up your supply, guys. It really is. Okay, cool. Going into the open itself, we've got a minute before the open. Let's quickly go and have a look at the Nvidia. Where are we at with it? Where's Nvidia? Here we go. So Nvidia has taken its all-time high. It's given us a little bit of a structure. It's currently gapping up at the open, so it's probably going to make another high. Again, you're really looking for the idea of price showing the volume to sustain the idea that we're going to be closing strong for the end of the week, because then next week we may get a little bit of a consolidation. But of course, with readings like this, core price index coming in at 0.2%, and then we've got the revised consumer sentiment coming out at 3 p.m. I mean, the week itself next week, we're going into the end of the week, end of the month. We're going into the non-farm payrolls next week. So it's going to be a very interesting. Oh, sorry. Yeah, non-farm payrolls, guys, is going to be done on a Thursday. Okay, remember that. Non-farm payrolls is done on a Thursday because you've got a bank holiday on the US on the 4th. Okay, happy 4th of July and what have you. Okay, cool. Who's selling to the institutions at the highs? Who is selling to the institutions at the highs? No one's really selling to the institutions. This is people just taking orders. And institutions are positioning themselves to sell as prices are going up. Here we go. NASDAQ, what's it doing? S&P is taking a bit of a tumble. NASDAQ's coming down a little bit. Market has opened up pretty aggressively. Let's quickly go over to the NASDAQ, just quick time, have a look at where we are. So a lot of stocks right now are gapping up at the open. So that's good news for us right there. Quickly going over into the yields. 10-year bond market is going down very sharply at that as well. The yields are shooting up. That's a bit of a problem for me. I don't like the yields shooting up. 10 years shooting up 1%. They were down nearly 1.5%, and now they're already up 1%. That's a bit of a problem. 5 years coming up at 1.34% as well. The SPX trading up positive. Gap up on the SPX, so just be very careful with that. Volatility index looks like it's basing out at the lows right now. The Chicago board one has come in with a bit of a gap down from yesterday, but we haven't got that open just yet, so we got to wait for that back. Oh, now it's just opened. Hold on, here we go. Yeah, so a little bit of a gap down right there. So there is a lot of complacency across the board with investors, given that the VIX is coming down. So that means there's a lot of calls coming into action. People are favoring higher prices overall. Quickly going over into the yen, just have a look there. So the yen is pulling back right now, which means they could be putting some money into the dollars, which could justify the idea of the stock market trying to make a recovery back up. However, if investors are not liking the idea of the data that's come out, then that could give us the idea that they could be going into the dollar for safety. So just be very careful with that, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Remember, with Forex, it's all about perceived value. All right. Keep that in mind. All right. Any questions? Tina, is the FX swap monitor broken? I wouldn't say it's broken at all. What you've got to understand is that when it comes to using other things regarding Forex and what have you, just look at the euro, okay, right here. Euro has been going up quite a bit. You now can get a lot of dollars with your very, very strong euro, okay? And that might be appealing for investors. But the thing that's got people worried is the fact that the Eurozone is spending so much on defense. You've got some old heavyweights talking about the German bonds and they're just giving them all out and they are trying to raise funds so that they can keep on spending on defense. That there is starting to worry some big heavyweights, given that this now could be an overinflated euro right now. It's getting close towards that 1.2, man, you know, and that is very, very good for the euro, terrible for the dollar. So something has to give. And the only thing that can give is the interest rates being cut to force investors to start going into alternatively yielding assets. Okay. So, sorry. Yeah. In other words, go to the dollar because it's cheaper, to say the least. Okay, cool. Anything else? So Friday profit taken could be people closing shorts, correct? I want to say, yeah, it's not just people closing shorts. People could effectively be selling. This could all be one whole big sell-off. Okay, in the sense where it's rising. They sell as it rises. That's proof right there. These guys want to sell. 21 million at 115,000. They want to sell at that range. Okay, and they have been selling quite a bit. You want to focus on when they're buying. That means when it drops. That's why I say to you, focus on when Bitcoin drops, because you'll get weight on the idea of how concentrated are the buys. How concentrated are they in one area against the other? Okay, so when you're looking for Bitcoin, to simplify it for all of you right now, for anyone that's involved in crypto and holding Bitcoin, you've got Bitcoin right now trying to hold above the 5 and 13 EMA. Okay, the last 2 days, Bitcoin hasn't been able to succeed above this candle right here. That is a problem for me. It hasn't been able to close above that range. It's tapped it, but it's rejected it. For Bitcoin to sustain itself, it needs to clear this range and break out. If it's not going to do that, it could pull back. And the first compromise of the 5 and 13 EMA, because the 5 and 13 EMA need to expand away from the 50 EMA to suggest the idea of momentum. If you're not seeing that, then you could still be in line for a consolidation period in Bitcoin. What we're in essence looking for is this stuff right here. You see these 3 candlesticks? We're looking for this here, because then that big candlestick will fuel the move up, sweep that liquidity. Break it down, retrace, proof of the move. Continuation up, sweep that liquidity, all-time high. Retrace, test the previous all-time high, move up. And then when Bitcoin has moved up to a specific point, that's when you'll get the next level of consolidation. Remember, the longest period of consolidation that Bitcoin had was when it previously broke this area here, when it hit the all-time high of 74K, okay? That's the longest period it spent at its all-time high before it broke out. Are we getting the same amount of period? No, not necessarily, because we make an all-time high, comes down, makes another one, comes down, clears it, comes down, and now it's close to trying to make another one, okay? The less time they consolidate, the less movement you're going to get from the breakout to the upside. The longer they consolidate, the bigger the move you're going to get, because look, it's near enough. Look at that. That's a great move to the upside on Bitcoin. So we haven't had quite that consolidation just yet, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Once we get that, then that's when you're going to start looking for the projections of Bitcoin going to 150, 200, 300K, okay? Even though the news is great for Bitcoin, it's making lower highs. You need to see it break out. And I believe it's because Arkham are picking up the Bitcoin, shorting it, or institutional investors are shorting it at the same time. You only need to go to the high block to look at all the liquidation points that you got on Bitcoin. That is a sad sight. And I'm hoping that people pay themselves, because nothing stops the market from just saying, you know what, nope, and then rip. So just pay yourselves. Take something off the table and honor your efforts from trying to understand this BS game that we call trading. Sorry. Okay, then. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, mad love and respect. Hope that makes sense for you. Make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll be checking in with you all on Monday. Take care of yourselves, gang. Mad love and respect. Peace.